Hi everyone, I'm Jason from Trade-N-Games and welcome to another kiosk video. This time I'm going to be showing you guys the Atari 2600 store display. This unit would have been found in many retailers like Kmart and Sears and other retailers that wanted to display this unit. It would have been found in most stores that really had a big Atari division in the early 80s. 1981, 1982, these things really started showing up because of mainly increased competition from Coleco and television on the market. Atari went all out with this kiosk. It was made by Atari's arcade division and they really put a lot of thought into it. A light-up marquee, storage for key merchandise, and games and systems could go underneath. Basically, whichever way the retailer wanted to set it up. Now, these units most of the time were delivered to the stores fully assembled, and the retailer just had to add their own TV. Depending on what department it was in, they would add their brand of TV. Now, sitting here right now is a Nintendo Sharp TV, which definitely does not belong there, but this is where I store it, and it fits well here, but we'll talk about that in a later video. Now, what really attracted people to the display, besides this light-up marquee, is the way it merchandised everything in it. And what's really unique about this unit is it actually has a brain underneath here. And with this brain, this is just a dummy unit sitting on top, and they could have put whatever department store they wanted to. Could put the Sears brand here, or Force Switch, or Vader, whichever unit they were pushing, and it would just be for looks. Because built into it would actually be where you would actually select games via the brain. It had Atari-style joysticks and paddle controls and fire buttons. And then you just start your game, whichever game ends up coming up here. Now, to keep things simple, the brain actually shipped to the retailers with all the same games in it. So this marquee right here actually has an index that shows every single game that's built into the kiosk. And that tells you what number to select. And then you can go to that page and see exactly how to play the game if you use the joysticks or the paddle controllers and which fire buttons. Now, this unit is actually very well sized to fit into most doors, and that was actually important to a lot of the retailers. They didn't want to take up a lot of floor space, but still wanted to add a really neat merchandising to their selection of Atari stuff. It's about 6 foot tall, about 4 foot wide, and only about 2 foot deep. It actually would rely on the speakers that were built into the TV for sound, so the retailer could adjust the volume up and down that way also. So the other option that retailers had was they could actually supply their own TV and a working 2600. And they could actually just plug these built-in joysticks and paddles directly into the ports of the 2600. And then they could actually load cartridges in. Now, something that I'm missing from my kiosk is actually some merchandising holding little wire baskets that would go right here. I haven't been able to find any yet. In my years of searching and actually assembling this kiosk, I'm probably going to have to make these myself with a little bit of welding. So some other interesting information about Atari 2600 kiosk in general is there's basically this model, there's the other overlay model for the functioning Atari on top, and then Sears made a countertop version also, which was just basically this part, but it was a lot more rounded over, and it had a printout of all the games in it, and they were the same games basically in this kiosk, except for their 3 exclusive games, and they had to listed out their titles because they called tank games different than combat. And that was how they set theirs up. Alright, moving down to the bottom of the kiosk, this is some great storage space right here where retailers could actually fill this up with merchandise. They could put accessories, systems, and games in here on these shelves. They're really deep masonite shelves, almost the full depth of the kiosk, 2 foot. And they're at an angle, so everything doesn't fall forward and everything just lines up nice and neat against this little header board right here. And this is actually, they could slide in tags in here. Now, behind this pretty thick plexiglass, about 1/4 inch thick, and behind this lock, these slid real easy, so the retailers could put stuff in here. Now, I usually keep accessories in this thing, but I put a row of games in here so you guys could get a good idea of what this actually might look like filled with games from the retailer. And of course, some could have been faced out, and put deep of the same title. So what I really wanted to talk about was actually how I acquired this whole entire unit. Because basically this was 3 steps in acquiring this unit over the years. The first part I acquired was the brain and the controllers. Thought everybody might get a kick out of this. This is actually how I purchased the brain. It was in a Kmart store and the manager was told to throw away the kiosk. So he actually salvaged the brain and the controllers, got an old piece of paneling, and hooked these things up so that his kids could have an Atari for Christmas. And he had over 40 games to play with. Pretty ingenious. And the second piece I got was actually just the marquee, the one that's actually on the unit right now. I actually purchased this brand new in box, probably in the middle 2000s for about $200, and to maybe build my own kiosk is what I had in mind. So then actually a whole entire kiosk came up for sale, and it was in pretty good shape, but it was dismantled at a house. And I'm in St. Louis, Missouri, and it was about in the middle of outside of Kansas City, about the middle of Kansas. And I worked out a deal with the owner. I don't remember the price that we paid for it. It wasn't a giveaway price, but I went ahead and drove out there and picked it up. And then when I assembled it, I actually didn't use the marquee, the overlay part here. I actually used my one I had bought new, because the one that was on the unit was a little worn and it didn't match the brain. It was meant for the unit that just sat on top, the functioning Atari 2600. And that way I was able to put this whole unit together, and I did the normal things like, clean up some of the molding on it, of course clean the plexiglass the best I could up here, because these letters are screen printed on here and I didn't want to end up damaging any of them. And then it has a Visa MasterCard sign. Of course that wouldn't have been standard coming for the display, but a retailer put that on. I don't want to risk removing that, and I like it. It adds some character to the kiosk. Other than that, the unit was in pretty good shape. It was missing the keys. I could easily buy turn keys for this, but it's not necessary for around the store here in the collection. I just keep different stuff in there all the time, moving it around. And then underneath the sliding doors, they had some scratches on, and I was able to polish the plexiglass a little bit and make it look a whole lot better. Alright, so now what I've done for you guys is I'm actually going to take this unit apart right here, and I'm going to show you the brains and the underneath of this marquee, so you can really get a good idea of what I'm talking about. So what you're looking at here is actually the brain for the kiosk. This was made by Atari's arcade division. This is a full functioning Atari 2600 right here. Here's the power input, the RF input and output, and also the cartridge slot. Now we don't think this actually functions, it's just part of the build, because really what this thing is selecting from are all these chips right here, 43 of them, and some empty sockets for adding some in the future. So right now, while I have the whole entire kiosk part, it gives me a great opportunity to show you where the actual game brain goes. This is the metal box that's also considered the RF shielding for the 2600. The brain actually slides in here on brackets, and then it hooks up your power and your RF right to the front of it here, and then you can mount your control panel right on top and hook up the controllers to it. The built-in joysticks that look like the original style sticks, but are rather arcade style leaf switch controllers, and a set of paddle controllers underneath this marquee. This wiring underneath here would easily hook up to the supplied 2600 unit on the top, or directly into the brain, whichever way the retailer really wanted to set the unit up. So what I'm going to do here is I'll go through just a little picking a game out. Let's decide on a game here using this. Let's play Space Invaders. It is number 26. So basically we go 1, 2, 6, and then we hit press the start button, and we have Space Invaders. Now it's set up on one player, so I'd actually have to use a joystick on this side. Oh. And then anytime you wanted to pick a different game, just hit the select button and a new game would start right out, built out of the brain here. So I hope you've enjoyed this video on the Atari 2600 kiosk. This is actually one of my favorite pieces to the collection. I know I have some really neat things like the Intellivision and ColecoVision kiosk, but the work that went into acquiring this from 3 different kiosks, moving it around, I've had it the longest. This unit has really grown, in my heart, and I'm glad this unit is in its full glory now, fully restored, and it's going to be preserved for a long time. So definitely hit that like button and the subscribe button, and we'll be bringing you more kiosk videos really soon. Have a good one.